Hi, it's Chrissy Green here with another Photoshop editing tutorial for the wonderful members at the Photography for Beginners editing group. Today I'm going to talk a little bit about selecting objects and integrating them into your image so that they look like they should be there. There's a lot of ways to do things in Photoshop. Some are easier than others. Some techniques are useful in some circumstances and then useless in other ones, and it's a lot to master, and it's very challenging. So for this tutorial, I thought the best way to do it would be to kind of go through editing this photo, and because when I edit this photo, I'm actually going to use a couple of different selection techniques. Because of all of the things that I'm selecting, one method isn't going to work for all of them or be the best method for all of them. So by editing this image, it will show you a couple of different techniques, and it will show you the methods that I use when I want to place things into my image. So without further ado, I better get started. If I don't have time to finish all of this in one 10-minute video, I may have to make a second. But for starters, here we go. So this is an image of my daughter. You may have seen a similar image in our portrait group yesterday. I have a little helium balloon that ends up holding up the dress like it's floating. This is how that shot was done. It was just my husband holding several pieces of her dress up in the air. And it's actually not even a dress. It's just 3 yards of satin that I wrapped around a different red dress. So the first thing I need to do is obviously get rid of him. In this image, I'm going to use the spot healing tool here. Wonderful, powerful tool. Usually it works really great. I'm just going to see how it does here on his feet. Oh, that worked well. And we'll get rid of his other foot. That worked well too. I'm not sure how it'll do in his hand, but hey, I'm willing to try. The secret with the spot healing tool is to use it no bigger than the area you're trying to get rid of, and it usually does a really good job. Yeah, I can't really complain about that. Now, the next thing I did was probably, I'm going to need that to be at a bit more of a point. But we'll start with some selecting. So the first one obviously is, your quick selection tool. It's a great tool. Sometimes. I don't tend to use it a lot because I don't like the edge that it gives me, and I'll show you what I mean. But what I want to do is shape this area here to look the way I want it to look. Right now I'm not happy with the shape of it, so I'm going to select this area. And give it a moment. If it over selects, you just hit the minus and you go over these areas that you don't want. If it under selects, click on the plus sign and do the same thing. And it kind of looks like it did a good job until you scroll in. And what you can see here is a lot of red pixels that just weren't included. Now, I could simply just go to, select, modify, and expand, and decide how many extra pixels I should add. I can take this selection and expand it 3, 4, 5 pixels. It's still going to give me this jagged edge, and this is what happens when Photoshop is trying to decide where does the red end and the brown begin. This little area where the image wasn't 100% sharply focused, this wasn't my focal point, these pixels are brownish red. So Photoshop kind of decides where it's going to make that cutoff point, and you get this jagged line. I don't want this jagged line. When I'm selecting fabric in these shots, I'm looking for a sharp, crisp, flawless curving line. And when it comes to Photoshop, the only way to get that is with the pen tool. Yeah, and this one's for you. I know you love the pen tool. So I'm going to hit Control D to deselect that, and I am going to grab my pen tool. And the reason I love this tool, it does take a bit of practice to master, but the reason I love it is because it gives you a vector kind of edge. It's just flawless. So I'm going to start up here on the fabric, and I'll just pick a point before this curve. I want this curve to be its own little section, so before the curve. And I know I'm not getting all of the fabric. I don't need all of the fabric in this. What I do need is a straight line. There we go. I kind of ruined that by expanding my picture too much. Let's do that over again. And never be afraid to crop off bits of your image if they just aren't crucial bits of your image. And now if I hit Alt on this little wing, it lets me grab it. So I can kind of shorten that up. And then I'm going to go into here and just pull it out until I'm more or less happy with the way it looks. And that's probably really good. I will pop on over here. I'm not really concerned about the interior of the shape. It's the exterior, it's the crisp line that I'm looking to get. And I'm going to grab it. The part that does matter is where this fabric joins up here. So I'll zoom in and get it really close there. And then I'm just going to go for a shape that I like. There we go. That looks pretty good. So now that I've closed up my selection there, I can right click and say Make Selection. If I want this to be blurred, I would add a feather radius, and that will blur that edge, much the way the edge was blurred when we zoomed in and you saw that, you know, some of the pixels were red and some were reddish brown. But because I'm after a sharp, sharp line, I'll leave it at 0. And I will say OK. So now I've got this selection, and it's going to be gorgeous. What I want to do is get rid of everything that's outside of that selection. For the image, I was just cloning in around it. So I'll grab my stamp tool by hitting the short key of S. Ah. Invert your selection. It's always good advice. Here we go. So I am just going to go around my selection, try to match up the floor where I can. I'm going really quick on this because you know, I do have the time limit on my videos here. And you know, again, this is really rough, but you can kind of see what I've been trying to accomplish here. So when I hit Control D, when I zoom in now, that is a very crisp line. There are no fuzzy pixels there, and I was able to change the shape of the fabric to be this curving, neat little arc that I was looking for. I've got it to a point there. So that's how I did that portion of the image that I posted yesterday in the portrait group. I ended up doing this on a couple of different images and combining them all into one, so I ended up with 4 pieces of dress that were floating. The next thing that I'm going to work on in the next video is selecting and adding in elements to make it look like they were part of the initial image. Almost out of time, so I think I will just make that another video, and we'll just call this one How to Use the Pen Tool. So I hope you join me for the next video where we work on adding images to your pictures and integrating them so that they look like they belong there. And in the meantime, don't be afraid of the pen tool. It's a wonderful, powerful little tool. And don't listen to those stuffy French admins that tell you that the pen tool is stupid and useless and never use it.